It was the wind that gave the place a voice. No one really mentioned that. The way the battered old bricks of Chapel Row Asylum seemed to groan in chorus when the wind pushed through the gaps. The broken windows whistled, the metal doors rasped, the wooden eaves creaked like cracking bones. It sounded almost like breathing, raspy, gurgling, sick. When I first pulled up to the rusted gates, it didn't feel haunted. Felt wrong, as if the earth itself rejected it. Even the tree roots curled away from the stone foundations, and not a single bird sang in the gray sky above. I wasn't scared, not then, not really, just hyper-aware. That adrenaline cocktail of fear and thrill that any decent urban explorer knows well. I wasn't here just for the views. I ran a moderately successful YouTube channel where I explored abandoned places across the Midwest. Rust and Echo, 30,000 subs strong. A few viral clips here and there. I documented forgotten steel towns, mold-ridden schools, even a collapsed mineshaft that almost killed me. But Chapel Row had become my white whale. There was precious little footage of it. It had been sealed shut in 1987 after a string of abuse allegations and 4 unexplained deaths. No arson, no cave-ins, no cinematic catastrophe. Just a quiet closure, followed by silence. Security fences went up. Locals avoided it. Some claimed it was condemned, but I checked the land registry. The state still owned it. No demolition plans. Just neglect. Brut. The front door was locked, but someone had pried open a basement window around the back. I slipped through it like a thief and dropped into the darkness below. My flashlight flickered to life. The beam cut through clouds of mold spores and dust. The air was thick, warm, like a basement shouldn't be. The walls dripped with condensation, and every few feet, black mold bloomed in thick clusters. The scent was overwhelming, mildew, rot, something coppery just beneath it. I started filming immediately. Day 1, Chapel Row, I said into the camera. The air's heavy. The layout's standard institutional, long halls, tile floors, steel doors with reinforced windows. But look at this. I panned across the corridor.
No graffiti. No ver cans. No vernt matrices.
It's like no one's ever come in. And that's when I should have left. Right then. Because that wasn't normal. Every abandoned place I'd explored had been vandalized, stripped, marked. But Chapel Row? It was frozen in time like it had been waiting. Upstairs, the halls stretched out like intestines, winding, segmented, identical. My boots echoed too loudly on the tile. I passed patient rooms, nurses' stations, rec rooms with overturned chairs. Everything was coated in dust, yet some of the chairs looked recently moved. I chalked it up to rodents. Maybe wind. I reached the central hall. A domed ceiling stretched above, stained with dark water lines. At the far end stood the tower, the light tower. It was what had made Chapel Row famous. A massive glass lantern room atop the main building, built like a lighthouse, meant to signal orderlies during storms or blackouts, before intercoms and radios. But it hadn't lit up in 40 years. I set up my tripod in the central corridor to get a long pan. As the camera rolled, I walked into a side room to get some B-roll. When I came back, the camera was off, and its position had shifted by 2 inches. I stood there for a long time, staring at it. Then I heard something upstairs. A footstep. Slow. Heavy. Followed by a dragging sound. I froze. Then instinct kicked in. I reached for my phone, opened the backup audio recorder app, and started capturing everything. If this was a squatter, I needed evidence. If it was a ghost, even better for views. I climbed the stairs. Each floor got colder. The 3rd floor was frigid, the kind of cold that feels internal, like you swallowed ice water. The light tower loomed above, just one spiral staircase away. As I reached it, my phone buzzed. A notification. Video uploaded. The last keeper screams. Channel. Rust and Echo. My stomach dropped. I hadn't uploaded anything. My phone had no service. I opened YouTube. There it was. A new video. For minutes long. It had a thumbnail of me, standing right here on the staircase. Eyes wide, mouth open, mid-scream. I tapped play. The video opened with me walking down the third-floor hallway. My flashlight flickered. I called out to someone. Then I screamed ear-piercing, guttural, raw. The camera shook violently, crashed to the floor, and then nothing but static. I watched myself die, except I was still here. I didn't even remember filming that. Then I heard the scream, for real, not from my phone, from upstairs. I ran. The spiral staircase was narrow and rusted, and my boots slammed against each step as I bolted up it. The door to the light tower was ajar. I pushed it open. The room was empty, but it felt crowded. The glass dome above was cracked in spiderweb patterns. Dust danced in the fading afternoon light. In the center of the room stood the massive light mechanism, tarnished brass and shattered lenses. And sitting next to it was a film reel, labeled Keeper. Against every survival instinct I had, I took it. Back at my hotel that night, I set up my old Super 8 projector. I recorded the projection with my phone, frame by frame. The reel was short, silent, grainy, black and white. It showed the light tower. A man in an orderly's uniform stood beside the lens, adjusting it. Behind him, something shimmered in the glass. A dark figure, too tall, no face, just a smear of shadow. The man turned, saw it, screamed. The figure didn't move, but the lens turned on by itself. The beam of light shot out, and the man's skin peeled away like old wallpaper, layer by layer until he collapsed. The reel ended. I uploaded it to my laptop, tried to stabilize and enhance the image. But every time I exported the file, it became corrupted. Not in a glitchy, pixelated way, visually warped, as if the digital file itself was bleeding. Every frame looked alive. Then the lights in my hotel room flickered. My laptop screen went black, then white. Then text appeared, "You are the keeper now." I slammed the lid shut. The light in the corner of the hotel room, a cheap desk lamp, turned on by itself. And it was rotating, scanning. I fled. I'm not sure how long I drove. Just away. Away from the hotel, away from Chapel Row, away from the spiral staircase still burned into my memory. I deleted my YouTube channel, smashed the phone, destroyed the reel. But every week since, a new video appears. Same channel name, same description. They're always titled things like, Keeper's Memory #2, Screams in the Dome, The Tower Calls Again. And they're always clips of me, sleeping, walking in empty rooms, screaming. I stopped sleeping weeks ago, because I know if I close my eyes for too long, I'll wake up at Chapel Row, again, in that tower, the light spinning, scanning, waiting for its keeper. The town of Danton barely showed up on GPS anymore. Just a faded dot in rural Illinois, surrounded by flat fields and unpaved roads. At its heart, shrouded in rust and ivy, stood the old grain mill, 4 stories of brick and soot, its smokestack leaning like a broken spine. No one had operated it since the 1940s, when the river it relied on dried up and the nearby farms closed one by one. But they never tore it down. They just left it. And over the years, the mill became local folklore. The Screamer's Mill, they called it. Kids dared each other to peek through the slats or climb to the loft, though none ever made it to the top. Rumors said the upper floors weren't built right, that the blueprints were cursed or the rooms changed when no one looked. I wasn't from Danton. I was a field surveyor for a real estate reclamation company. My job was simple. Document old structures, assess their condition, determine if the land could be reused or if demolition was needed. We were working a contract with the state. Any abandoned structure left untouched for more than 60 years had to be checked, especially if it was within 2 miles of residential property. The mill was my Thursday assignment. The first odd thing was the weather. The day had been bright and dry, but as soon as I reached the gravel pull-off near the mill, clouds rolled in thick and fast. Not thunderstorm clouds, just gray, like the sky decided to go blank. The air went heavy, still.
No birds.
No wind, just the steady hum of silence. I parked, grabbed my gear, laser measurer, DSLR, clipboard, an emergency comms radio, and made my way toward the entrance. The main doors had rotted off years ago. I stepped into the atrium and immediately felt the shift. The floorboards groaned under my weight, but not in the way old wood usually did. Felt intentional, like the building was reacting. A low moan rolled through the ceiling, and a beam of dust spilled down in a shaft of light that looked more like smoke than sunlight. The walls were covered in flaked paint and old machinery schematics. Gears hung on rusted hooks. Tools lay scattered across a bench as if someone had just stepped away. I started my recording notes. Structure: Danton Grain Processing Mill. For floors: no exterior power sources. Stabilization questionable, but internal framing appears intact. Beginning floor 1 survey. I stepped into the main processing room. The machines were monsters. Belt drives, augers, crushers, all silent, all ancient. Cobwebs stretched across them like sinew. As I passed by the main grinder, a huge, steel-jawed thing, I noticed something bizarre. The power lever was up, active position, but there was no power to the building. I reached out to touch it. Clang. The lever snapped down by itself, and I jumped back, nearly slipping on a patch of grease. Nothing happened. No movement. No sound. I laughed nervously into the recorder.
Unexplained lever engagement.
Possibly spring tension failure due to rust. Continuing. I made my way to the back stairwell, careful not to disturb any structural weaknesses. The steps held, but they groaned with every movement. At the second floor, I paused. It smelled like burnt grain, a thick, acrid stench of charred wheat and dust. The second floor housed the conveyor belts and hopper system. I took a few photos, noted the dimensions, and click. The conveyor belt twitched. I turned around slowly. The belt moved again, just a few inches. Dust shook loose from the beams above. Then it stopped.
I walked over, crouched, checked underneath. No rodents.
No power cables. Nothing to explain it. That's when I noticed the wall. It wasn't brick like the rest of the building. This one section, about 10 feet across, was made of iron. Old, pitted, matte black iron. It had bolts the size of my fists and bore no identifying marks, except for 3 slashes carved deep into the surface, each about a foot long. I'd never seen anything like it. I snapped a photo. The flash caught something, a reflection in the corner of my eye. When I turned, there was nothing. I climbed to the 3rd floor. More machines, more conveyor systems, and one long chute that descended all the way to the bottom. It had a hatch door at the top, labeled Feed 3A. As I stood there, indoor wind blew past my ears. And then I heard it. Help! A whisper, soft, male. From below the chute. I froze. The sound came again. Louder. Please. It's in the gears. I peered down the chute. Nothing but darkness. I stood up straight, heart pounding. This is a survey site, I shouted down the chute. If you are present and require assistance, I have emergency services on standby. Identify yourself. No response. I turned to leave. The hatch door slammed shut behind me. I sprinted to the 4th floor. The steps creaked so loud they sounded like screams. At the top was the grain loft, a massive open room with wooden rafters and massive pulley systems. The moment I stepped in, every pulley began to sway. The air turned icy. My breath fogged. And then, the machinery started moving.
Belt spoon.
Gears turned. The main grain crusher, a massive iron drum with jagged metal teeth, began rotating with a low, agonizing grind. There was no power, no fuel. Then I saw them, silhouettes, behind the grain netting, moving in sync with the machinery. Dozens, maybe hundreds, shadowy figures in overalls, their eyes blank, their mouths wide open, screaming, but no sound came out, except for the gears, grinding, chewing, devouring. I backed away. Then my radio crackled. In the gears. I'm in the gears. I turned to run, but the stairs had vanished. Literally gone. In their place was another wall. Brick solid. I pounded on it, panicked. Then the lights. Ancient, rusted ceiling bulbs flickered to life, one by one, and standing at the far end of the loft, partially obscured by the grain dust, was a man, tall, gaunt, in a tattered worker's uniform. One eye was missing, the other was black, and his mouth was a gaping hole filled with spinning gears. He raised his hand, and every machine in the loft screamed to life. I ran. I don't know how I got out. I remember the windows bursting inward, the rafters collapsing, the sound of 1,000 teeth gnashing in metal unison. Then, I woke up, outside, covered in grain dust, my shirt torn, my phone smashed, but my radio was intact, and it kept repeating the same looped phrase, "It's in the gears. It's in the gears. It's in the gears." The survey team found me 6 hours later. I was 2 miles from the mill in the middle of a field. No memory of how I got there. I filed my report. They laughed it off, said I inhaled mold spores and had a psychotic break. But 3 days ago I got a package. No return address. Inside was a film reel, labeled Gears_BOV. I played it. It was a recording of me, standing in the loft, eyes black, mouth wide open, gears grinding inside. And now, every time I close my eyes, I feel it. Turning, chewing, grinding. Something inside me wants out. The first time I saw the building, I nearly missed it. It was just there, tucked between 2 aging brick complexes on 48th and Minot, a side street in a half-forgotten pocket of the city. No sign, no buzzers, no numbers on the wall. The windows were blacked out. No curtains, no lights, just blank squares set into crumbling gray concrete. But I was desperate. Craigslist ad. Efficiency unit. All utilities included. No credit check. $400/month. Immediate move-in. A miracle for someone like me. Fired from 2 jobs. Maxed cards. Staying in a friend's car. When I called the number, a monotone voice gave me the address. No questions asked. Told me to come at sundown. Unit 4B. I thought maybe it was a scam. Or a trap. But I was past the point of caring. So that night, just before 7 p.m., I walked up to the narrow entrance sandwiched between 2 boarded-up storefronts. A steel door, slightly ajar, groaned open when I pushed it. No handle on the inside. Just a dark hallway that smelled of dust and iron. The lobby, if you could call it that, had no desk, no lights, and no elevator. Just a stairwell spiraling up into blackness. I climbed. Each floor creaked underfoot, but not from rot. More like protest. Like the stairs didn't want to be stepped on. 4th floor. Hallway stretched endlessly left and right, though the building couldn't have been more than 20 feet wide. Each door had faded white numbers stenciled onto rusted metal. 1A, 2A, 3B, finally, 4B. The door opened without a key. The unit was clean, sparse. 1 room with a cot, a table, a sink, and a small bathroom with a mirror. The walls were bare concrete. No outlets, but somehow the overhead bulb buzzed to life. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me. There was no lock, and I never heard it latch. The first night, I slept better than I had in months.
No roaches. No shouting neighbors.
No cold, just silence. The second night, I noticed something strange. When I looked into the mirror in the bathroom, I didn't see my reflection. I saw me, but not me. The other version of me had deeper bags under his eyes. He looked scared. His lips moved, but I heard no sound. I blinked. The image returned to normal. I chalked it up to stress. But then the knock started. Midnight. Sharp, rhythmic. From the other side of the wall behind the cot. For knocks. Every night. Same time. Same rhythm. I banged back once. No reply. On the 5th night, I pressed my ear to the wall during the knocks. I heard whispers. Not words. Just breathy, frantic murmuring. Like someone trying to pray underwater. That's when I realized something else. There shouldn't be a unit behind mine. The floor plan didn't allow for it. The window, my only one, looked out into a brick wall less than 3 feet away. There was nothing on the other side, but the knocks kept coming. So I knocked back 4 times. The whispers stopped. Then a pause. And then 9 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. Angry. I didn't sleep. The next day, I left to get food. When I returned, something was off. My cot was moved 6 inches to the left. My toothbrush was gone. The mirror had a crack in it that hadn't been there before. And then I saw my phone on the table. Screen lit up. One new video. I hadn't recorded anything. Played it. It was footage of me, sleeping. The camera was positioned at the foot of my bed. Steady. As if mounted. It recorded 6 full hours of me tossing and turning. Occasionally sitting up and staring at the wall. But I don't remember doing that. And worse. The timestamp read 1964. The next night, the walls bled. At least, that's what it looked like. At exactly midnight, a dark fluid began leaking from the upper corners of the room. Thick, slow drips. I touched it, it wasn't blood. It was warm like soup. Smelled like copper and rot. Then the light bulb flickered, and the door to the hallway opened on its own. I should have run. But I didn't, because something inside me, the apartment maybe, wanted to know more. And I was starting to feel like I had been here before, as if part of me never left. I walked into the hallway. It had changed. What should have been a narrow corridor now stretched impossibly far, with doors lining both sides. But they weren't labeled normally anymore. They had names. Like, the Room of Mouths. Do not enter 4D. Mother's Echo. Your first death. Every door pulsed slightly, as if breathing. I turned back. My door for B was gone. Only blank concrete. I ran. I opened the door marked Exit. It led to another hallway. Longer. Darker. Now I was panicking. I opened another door. Then another. I found a stairwell, but it didn't go down. It spiraled upward endlessly. I climbed until my legs ached. When I reached the next floor, the hallway was identical to my units. And standing at the far end was me. But not me. That other version. The one from the mirror. His eyes were hollow. Skin pale. He smiled wide and wrong. He raised a hand and pointed behind me. I turned. The hallway had filled with doors again. But now they were open. And from within each something crawled out. Not people. Not creatures. Reflections. Distorted versions of me. Thin ones. Rotting ones. Screaming ones. I ran. I found a staircase. Down. Always down. Floor after floor. Each hallway was slightly different. Some flooded. Some in flames. One was filled with the sound of children laughing. But I never saw them. Finally, I collapsed at a door labeled Home. I opened it. I was back in 4B. Everything was exactly as I left it. Except, there were 2 cots now. And someone else was sleeping in the second one. He looked just like me. And his eyes were open. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't left since. I don't think I can. Every time I open the door, it leads somewhere else. Sometimes a hallway. Sometimes a forest. Once I stepped out and was standing at my own funeral. I don't know how many versions of me are in this building. But each night, another door appears. Another me arrives. And eventually, I think there won't be any more space left. The apartment has no address. Because it isn't in the world. It's just under it. Waiting for more versions of you to come home.